Beware.
The Accountant by the Prowler. The room that surrounds the man sitting behind the table is run down. The walls are stained, with holes scattered throughout, revealing exposed wood. It is dark inside, with only the dim glow from a few hanging bulbs lighting the eerie atmosphere of the decaying chamber. A fireplace can be found to the left of the desk, hollowed and decrepit, with tiny scratch marks adorning its wooden frame. A weathered navy blue upholstered chair sits to the right of the fireplace, facing the man behind the desk, tattered through time and stained from whoever sat before. The desk in the middle of the room is made from a once fine cedar piece of wood, darkened but chipped away from time. On top the desk sits a typewriter from a bygone era, 20s, maybe 30s, still in need of a constant ink ribbon exchange, which plenty can be found sitting in a black box in the bottom drawer of the desk. Next to the typewriter sits a dimly burning candle in a golden rust-colored candle holder. On the other side of the typewriter sits a china teacup, on top a saucer, with several chips around the rim of the cup and the saucer as well. One's colored white, with pink cherry blossoms painted on. It now is yellowed, with dry dark red smudges around its exterior, containing a dark black liquid inside, piping hot, as can be seen from the steam rising from its contents. A large brown leather book sits next to the teacup that looks to contain the history of man and his behaviors inside its bindings, placed ever so, as if it were meant to grab one's attention. Behind the table, sitting in a black upholstered long back chair, sits a man. The man, if you will. He looks to have endured 1,000 lifetimes of pain and torture, his face horribly scarred and burned from his pittance. His hair jet black with silver streaks throughout, finely shaved on the sides and in the back, exposing more scars underneath the hairline. His eyes cannot be seen, for he wears darkened reading glasses, with a long strand of black hair that hangs ever so, blocking his vision in one eye that he has to brush away as he bends over to place a sheet of off-white paper into the typewriter. The man then flips open the massive leather book, flipping through the dry, weathered pages until he arrives at the correct spot. He then slides open the top right drawer of the desk and procures a quill and ink from inside that he places just in front of the typewriter. The man appears to be ready. He raises his scarred head and looks toward the stained, scratched-up door and gently whistles a single melancholic note. The door creaks loudly in the eerily quiet atmosphere from the centuries-long rust coating the door's withered hinges. A person then is ushered into the room and is placed onto the chair next to the fireplace, staring at the man behind the desk. It's time to begin. The man waves his hand slightly, gesturing to close the door. If you're the person who has just been brought into the room, your sensories are immediately attacked with rot and decay, taking in the horrific smells which can be best described as death. The place you find yourself is definitely not heaven, but it is not hell either. It is a waiting room of sorts, a momentary inconvenience of purgatory, if you will. What you say during your interview will determine your eternal destination. Give truthful, honest answers, and you may be granted a heavenly reprieve. But if you should, for whatever reason, lie and not own up to your transgressions, then the fiery depths of eternal despair await your presence. The frightening man who sits behind the desk is who you must deal with. He's simply known as the accountant, and he's here to take inventory of your life's work. You must sit before him and account for your deeds, every detail, every action you did and did not take, every path you traveled and did not venture down will be looked at and scrutinized over painstakingly. The person who was just brought into the decaying chamber and sits trembling across from the accountant is a man, but he is no ordinary man. He is a priest, and his inventory is about to begin. I do hope you're comfortable, and the chair is suitable to your liking, Mr. The accountant pauses for a brief second as he pulls the man's file. Oh, I am indeed sorry. 1,000 apologies. Not Mr., but Father Malachi. A Catholic priest, I see. It's written in big bold letters atop your case file. Oh, and as evidenced by the white collar around your neck, I now see. Once again, apologies for my momentary lapse of detail, the accountant said sarcastically in his proper English tone. You're somewhat of a celebrity around these parts. A man of the cloth, after all. But I hope you know your position guarantees you nothing, Father. There's no free passes to paradise, and there's no getting out of your interview with me, the accountant said in a more serious, raised tone. The priest sat there dazed and confused, with a look upon his face as if he was thinking, how could something like this happen to me? Almost as if he thought his being a priest guaranteed him a free pass through the pearly gates. Well, Father Malachi, I see the state of confusion festooned across your face. So let us begin. We will go over a couple of minute details in your life, and we'll see what happens next. That all, of course, depends on yourself and the answers you give. Leave nothing out, and spare no details. Trust me, I have heard it all before, and I do not shock easily. Let's see here. Oh, this should actually be very quick, if you answer honestly. And please do. I'd love to wrap this up before my afternoon tea. It says here, you've spent your entire adult life protecting and guiding the flock of your congregation. Baptisms, confessionals, last rites. You've been there. For hundreds of parishioners you devoted your life and time to, performing the duties of a studious shepherd. But what about the 2 years before you became a priest, Father Malachi? The accountant said in a menacing tone. Specifically, from March 18th, 1980, to March 25th, 1982. Enlighten me on your endeavors during those raucous years, if you will, Father. I don't believe you were doing much shepherding in that span, were you? Drinking, drugs, womanizing. My, Father. Such a dirty young gentleman, the accountant said sarcastically. Father, excuse me, but this is your part of the proceedings. There will be no silent tongues in this room. If you persist on remaining quiet, then I will have to turn very nasty. As the accountant uttered that last line, he procured a rusty, blood-covered straight razor from his coat pocket and smiled at the priest, informing him that he'll use it on him just as it had been used on himself. Just then, before he was carved into, the priest shouted, "I was a young man. It's what all young men do during that special age. Enjoy life." You certainly enjoyed life, Father Malachi. We're not here, however, because of your partying ways. Well, not completely, anyway. We are here to discuss what you did during those intoxicating, adrenaline-pumping times. I do not know what you mean. I did nothing wrong during those years. Just simple, harmless, youthful partying. Then, after a horrible accident, I realized the errors of my ways, and that the partying lifestyle was not for me, and I joined the priesthood, the father explained calmly. Ah, yes, the accident. We'll get back to that later. But first, you're already lying, which I told you never to do. Remember, this is an interview, which determines your eternal resting place. Paradise and the pit of despair hangs in the balance for you, depending on your answers. Lie to me again, and your account will be terminated. You did something horrific to those poor innocent party-going girls, didn't you, Father? I want grisly, truthful details. You're here to confess your heinous acts. And if your confession is deemed sincere, you will reap the fruits of paradise. The accountant shouted. There are no grisly details to report of. If anything happened to those poor girls, then it was simply accidents. I know of nothing. I was not in my right mind during those times. No one was. I'm lucky I made it home most nights. I was a simple, rambunctious partier. Nothing more, nothing less. I never hurt a soul. The priest responded timidly. Oh, my Father, do we have big problems here? I've been a patient man. Some might say too patient. Your deeds are already known to me. We are looking for truth from your lips regarding the heinous things you've done in your life. I couldn't have made the situation any more clearer. I know each and every time you took to the streets to party, you found yourself a nice, unsuspecting girl to enjoy the evening with. Drinks, drugs, and a plethora of other delights on the menu. However, that's not where the fun ended for you. Anyway, you were never as intoxicated as you claimed to be. Everyone else was, but not you, Father. No, you can't sit before me and claim a drunkard's innocence when I know for a fact it was a ruse. For that was the time you went to work. That was the time you butchered those poor innocents. One by one, you massacred every woman that crossed your path. You're not just a murderer, but a serial killer, Father. The only semblance of truth that has escaped your lips was you did stop because of an accident. But let's uncover the whole truth of that night. You and a young woman were driving home, both inebriated, and the young woman who was driving lost control and ran into a telephone pole, injuring yourself and killing her instantly. I believe you told the police. Lies, of course, because the truth of the matter is you were driving. It was dark, and you swerved because you didn't want to run over a cat and ran into the pole. Then, in your quick thinking, you went to the trunk and pulled the woman out, who was your latest victim, then placed her in the driver's seat, smashing her head into the steering wheel and suffocating her on the spot, making it look like she had been driving. Then, after getting away with it, for whatever reason, you decided to quit your murderous ways, and you joined the priesthood, thinking it would absolve you of your sins. There it is, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what you should have said. Those are the truths that were needed for your ascendancy. But Father Malachi, sadly, your interview is over. The door violently swung open, and two cloaked figures dragged the priest away, kicking and screaming. So if you should find yourself in a dark and dingy room, sitting across from a scarred gentleman, when he asks you a question, it's best to tell him the truth. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.